When you're planning your dream holiday, all you're normally thinking about is chilling out in the sun and enjoying some good family time. But unfortunately for the Eelys, their dream holiday to Florida last July turned into a nightmare within 4 hours. Their beloved son, 5-year-old AJ, was found drowned in the pool, and what followed was a heartbreaking destruction of not only their lives, of their family unit and their hopes of a brighter future. Thankfully, they received a $2 million payout in compensation against the short-term rental who failed to safeguard their child. In truth, their lives were shattered, and it's hard for them to move forward from this unimaginable nightmare. I'm Steve Brenner, senior reporter at US Sun, and now we're going to be joined by the Ealy family and their attorney. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us, Alexander and Juanita. I'm so sorry that you've gone through this. Adam, can you maybe just introduce yourself and Alexander and Juanita and just explain what the situation was and how you became involved?
Of course. My name's Adam Finkel. I'm a partner at the Haggard Law Firm. I have the esteemed pleasure, honor of being with Juanita Davis Ealy and Alexander Ealy Sr. Tragically, they lost their son, AJ, at a drowning in a short-term rental property in Claremont. I had the privilege of representing them through a civil lawsuit against the property owners of that short-term rental. And as we have all learned and are very aware of the overarching problem with short-term rentals across our country. Too many of them are treated like residential properties rather than as commercial properties. And that's leading to a dangerous failure of safety measures being in place, which is leading to drownings and a host of other problems. And courageously, Alexander and Juanita are here to talk about that issue and hopefully be able to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, thanks so much. Alexander, I mean, where were you guys coming from when you booked your place in Florida? Where were you coming from?
We were coming from Killeen, Texas.
Killeen, Texas. Okay, and I've looked at the rental, and can you just explain, what it was and what drew you to that particular property?
So months ago when we saw the rental, what attracted us to it was the theme that had many rooms, proximity to the airport, and the city was lovely, and the weather was going to be great as well. It was during vacation. So just to start, that's what really led us to visiting that location.
Sure. It was there just how many of you went on the holiday?
I think it was more than 10 that was with us. I can't remember the approximate number, but it was more than 10 that was with us.
Okay, just what, friends and family, and just you just there for how long were you supposed to be going on vacation for?
So it was about maybe no more than a week. It was about the time we were going to spend there.
And Juanita, what transpired? What happened? How long were you there before this incident happened?
We arrived at the Great Escape on a Thursday. We checked in probably around 4:45 p.m. And we all sat down and had dinner together around 7:30, 7:45. And I know that time to be sure because we had a caterer that came in and did a taco bar for the family. The children, family, and friends were so excited. A lot of them did not eat dinner. They wanted to, partake in the activities that was on site. And shortly thereafter, probably within 30 to 45 minutes, that's when the chaos happened.
Okay, what actually happened?
So from what I remember is I was outside along with some other family and friends. I looked over to my right. I see my daughter with my friends, and I turn and ask a relative to look after my son AJ while I'll go inside and pack some gift bags. Because on Friday we had a planned day for all of us to go to Disney. And in those gift bags, we had T-shirts, we had water bottles, hand sanitizer, sunblock, just everything in those gift bags. So I was going inside to finish the gift bags. And probably within 10 to 15 minutes of me packing the gift bags for everyone on the trip, that's when we heard yelling and screaming. And I immediately called out a close friend of mine that is a registered nurse on the trip.
So what happened? Do you think AJ had just gone towards the pool and gone in by accident, or what happened?
I'm not sure. I wasn't outside.
What the investigation through law enforcement and obviously other resources has led to the conclusion that AJ was in the shallow, lazy river area and then ultimately slipped into the pool where tragically he drowned.
I'm so sorry. So, what were your memories of that evening? Just it must have been a blur, complete shock against everything, really, Alexander. Maybe.
To this day, it's still a blur. And bits and pieces, because of this tragic accident, I have suffered short-term memory loss. So it comes to me in phases. From what I remember is that I heard someone screaming saying, "There's a baby in the water." And I ran out after I called for my close friend as a nurse. As I was walking out, they were pulling my son out the water. And she immediately checked him and she said his pulse was faint. And they immediately started CPR. And when I say CPR, it was my husband, my aunt, and my close friend that's a nurse that all were doing CPR on AJ.
But unfortunately, it was unsuccessful, I guess.
Yes.
At what point, Adam, do you get involved in this situation?
So obviously looking for answers and help and clarity. Um, I had the honor of being trusted by the family in order to serve as their attorney. Our firm has been looking at the perils of short-term rentals across our country for a while now. What a lot of people don't realize is staring us right in the face, which is the largest hotel chain in America are short-term rentals, are your Airbnbs, your VRBOs, and your offshoot companies like the Great Escape Lakeside. They all position themselves in order to compete against hotels and brag that they provide the same amenities, but perhaps at a cheaper price or an increased convenience. But they don't hold themselves often enough to the same safety standards. And so when it comes to drownings across our country, there is no question that because of the type of pool that was present with the high-speed water slide, the lazy river, that this required a lifeguard. The Model Aquatic Health Code and every industry standard across the country says if you have a lazy river in this type of slide, either one of these, you need a lifeguard, but they didn't put one there. The fact that they didn't have an AED there, the fact that there was a registered nurse crying out for an AED to save AJ's life and it wasn't present is beyond the pale. If you're going to compete with the hotels and you want to be treated like a hotel, then you need to bring yourself up to commercial standards, and we're just not seeing that enough. And so the family and I got together. We obviously filed a lawsuit. That lawsuit came to a resolution, but that's not going to bring AJ back. And I tell them all the time whenever I speak to the family, the courage they show in trying to honor AJ's memory by speaking to people like you, by engaging with other advocacy groups and trying to make change across our country so this doesn't happen again is, to say courageous, is always an understatement.
Alexander, was it an issue that there wasn't like sufficient gates or stuff to keep him away, or was it just the fact that there should have been someone there, as Adam has just said, like a lifeguard looking because of the lazy river situation, or was the sort of gate element lacking as well?
I would say, we can't go back in time, change what happened. But what we can say looking forward is that whenever you have a setting like that, it's best to have a lifeguard in place. It's best to have the gate, have all the prevention in place to prevent someone else from suffering a loss to their family.
What kind of boy? What was AJ like, Juanita?
He was like any other 5-year-old, full of joy, happy, loving. I remember the good times of our son. Bright face every day, learning as much as he can. He's actually improving his reading at that time. Just from what I remember, he was just starting to read a book. He was like 5 years old.
Had you done much swimming before in the past?
As much as I could. I'm more of the just sit with my feet in the pool or in the jacuzzi type of person. I don't do a lot of swimming. I just kind of just relax in the pool, or if we go to the lake, I just sit and fish and sit close to the water.
Had AJ done much swimming in the past?
It was always The splash pad. We would always go to the splash pad. Is what we've always done.
What kind of messages do you think this could bring to the other parents that are potentially going into kind of similar situations? Is this a warning sign for other families to just to be aware of their surroundings, and make sure their lifeguards are there and things like that?
I mean, what's been remarkable here, and I know what is so important to the family, is it's not just a caution to parents, it's most importantly a caution to all these property owners and managers and companies. The reason why the law imposes duties upon the property owners and management companies to have safety measures in place is because they're the ones that are inviting people onto their property. They're the ones that are profiting from the commercial industry. They're the ones that are supposed to take that extra step and make sure that they have an aquatics expert on staff, that they consulted the Red Cross, that they think about things, the risks associated with the aquatic venue they put in place, not just considering the dollars and cents and whether or not it'll attract people. What we know is that drownings are prevented by instituting layers of protection. And some of those most important layers are born and duty bound to the property owners and managers. And if they would do that, statistics show that it would delay, deter, and prevent childhood drownings like this.
Are you seeing too much of this, Adam, right now? I know it's keeping you busy, but you're obviously seeing way too much of it.
Too much. And it's preventable. And it's not politics. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. We're talking about instituting common sense measures, that are proven to save children's lives. Who can't get behind that?
Because the family here, they shouldn't have to just turn up at a place and then be cognizant of everything should be there, shouldn't it? Everything should be in place, right?
Of course. And the property owners should have availed themselves of the knowledge that they have now, which is the type of venue that they had in place clearly is associated with increased risk of childhood drownings. And they should have either put lifeguards there, required lifeguards to be hired by whoever is renting out the property, controlled access to the pool, whether through fob or some other, so there's a shorter period of time where the pool can be used. In AED, you can buy off of online for just a couple of bucks and would save lives. These are things you need to put in place. It's not just about getting people in the door. It's about getting them in the door and keeping them safe.
Juanita, how's your family sort of coped in the aftermath of this? I know it's been less than a year, really, but how are you guys doing?
It's still fresh. We're moving forward the best we can. It has affected our family, our community, our church family, our school family, everyone was close to us. My 3-year-old daughter, she was 2 years old at the time. She asked for her brother every day. Every day. There's a saying, there's a funeral after a funeral, and I feel like we're still in that funeral phase. The phone calls have stopped. The support team is not there as much as it was before the services. But behind the scenes, we are not okay. We're not. We're coping, but we're not. And it's really hard for us because we prayed for AJ. AJ was wanted. AJ was needed. He was our rainbow baby. And AJ was conceived through IVF. So he was important to us. So to go through that journey, taking almost 300 IVF shots to get him here. He was born through COVID. To survive that, it hits hard. It hits hard. He had a long life ahead of him. People love AJ. His smile, his dimples. He was very affectionate. He loved hugs. He loved his dad reading him stories every night. He loved playing soccer. He was a well-loved child. We brought him up very well with great morals and teachings and everything. We were very intentional parents.
And did the court settlement, I know it went your way, but how difficult was it to go through that sort of procedure as well?
Very difficult. Very difficult. That's another stigma around IVF that we can explore on a different day. But IVF, the emotional, mental, financial aspect of it is draining. But you know you're going to get the light at the end of the tunnel. That's the only reason why you keep fighting. I was been very fortunate that I only had to go through one round of IVF for AJ. And AJ was loved before I even went through IVF.
And the money, I think you got $2 million settlement, but again, that nothing could replace
Nothing
what you've
can
lost.
replace. Nothing will replace our son. It's something we have to live with every day. We face it every day. We're constantly reliving those moments and asking ourselves, what could we done differently? What if, you know? So, and it's hard to grieve one child when you can't give another child 100%. You know, and we're trying to keep it age appropriate for her, but she asks for her brother every day.
And what would, I know Adam's sort of answered this, but what would your message be to other moms and dads that kind of are watching this, to be vigilant when you do have these short-term rentals, and what else springs to mind?
I would say there's a lot that could be said. I would just say that, hold your children tight, love them every day. Don't take for granted every minute that you have. Don't let this prevent you from, don't let our situation, our life, stop you from taking a vacation with your family. Don't stop living your life. You still create memories with your family. The research will be done. You cannot prepare for everything, but do your best in life with your family and loved ones.
Adam, when you were in litigation with the defendants, were they quite kind of adamant that they'd done nothing wrong? And I guess that's their job, isn't it, to try and dispel anything that they did wrong? But were they kind of bullish in what they believed in, or was there a kind of mea culpa at any point?
Quite frankly, I don't think they realized initially. I think initially their stance is emblematic of the problem we see across the country, which is this position that, well, we're just a residential home. It's just one home. But it was through discussion and through our presentation of the evidence and industry standards and research and paper and discussion that they realized you can call it a residential home as much as you want. It's a commercial property. It's a commercial industry. You run that place in order to compete with hotels and to make money. And once they started realizing that truth, and that, of course, a jury would see it that way, I believe they understood that, yes, they should have had lifeguards. Yes, they should have had an AED. Yes, they should have had somebody on staff counseling the ownership about the risks associated with the type of aquatic venue that they built, because they could have provided a safe hotel competition. They could have operated that water venue in a safe way. They didn't, because they didn't really realize what type of property they were operating.
Is that just a desperation just to keep the money rolling in? They kind of cut costs and are slack in terms of just making sure that all the right protocols are in place. Just lackadaisical by them, I guess.
I won't read their mind about whether or not they decided not to have all those measures for cutting costs or just complete negligence and naivete. But what we know and what we see is that there are far too many short-term rental operators across our country that are not putting in place the measures that they need to be. We are seeing the legislatures slowly catching up, whether it's localized in county or sometimes statewide regulations that are finding short-term rental properties to fall under a commercial definition. And eventually we all want, and I know certainly the family wants, that to be a nationwide principle that short-term rental properties are commercial properties, that they're be held to the same standards as hotels and required to put these safety regulations in place, because there's no question if that happens, there will be less grieving families.
How likely do you think that would happen? It's going to happen. I mean, there's fortunately getting more and more of these cases, I guess.
It's increasingly likely because of the bravery and courage of families like Juanita and Alexander. Because at the end of the day, it's families like theirs and so many other clients that my firm represents and has built lifelong relationships with that are going to go into state legislatures, go into the United States Congress, and beg their representatives to draft bills and put laws in place that will affect change. And when that is done, we will save children's lives.
Juanita, I guess you're now just trying to rebuild your life and move forward, I guess, but it's not very easy.
It is not. It's not. It's hard to just step one foot out the bed. So every day is its own different challenge.
Yeah. But hopefully AJ's legacy will maybe help other children,
Yes,
stay safe in the future.
Definitely the goal. Definitely the goal.
And just finally, how long into the holiday did this happen? How many days in?
We were there probably less than 4 hours. Less than 4 hours. We had our walkthrough with a representative probably about 4:45, and if I'm not mistaken, the first 911 call went out at a little bit after 9. So 5 hours. I apologize.
Okay, and I guess the rest of your party were just in absolute shock and despair as well, right?
And they still had to push through because we still had tickets to go to Disney. There were other children on the trip. And to try to keep them not exposed, we had to separate the children, have them go upstairs. And even though the Disney trip was still paid for, they still went, but their spirit was down because a lot of them were cousins and friends for a long time. And we still had to stay in the house that my son passed away in. And then come to find out, we checked out at 10. Another family checked in at 4 p.m. So they didn't even close it down. When we checked out, there was still caution tape still up for as a crime scene, and they still let the next guest check in at 4 o'clock.
Was that something, Adam, that was brought up in the lawsuit? The fact that the park was just left open and other people were just checking in as if nothing had happened, or is that normal? I mean,
we had certainly reached out and asked the ownership what they were going to do to change the property. What we ultimately ended up learning is that the property had been sold. One of the many people we hope are going to receive your message are the new owners of those properties. And we pray that they have put in the common sense regulations and safeguards that we have discussed. That way this doesn't happen again at this property specifically. Yes.
So the family that checked in actually probably had no idea of what had actually gone on, right?
I have no idea, but your guess is in line with what ours would be. Yes.
And you stuck around, Juanita. You didn't go back to Texas. You stayed around, right?
We ended up staying in Florida probably another 5 days after that because I made it my mission. I was not leaving Florida without my son. So, make sure, get him prepared to return home and make sure we were on the same flight together, escorting him on the runway at the airport. I'm so thankful for the airline for allowing us to do that. But we was able to travel back home together. And then we were presented with his wings.
Okay, listen, I'm so sorry that you've gone through that. I really hope you find some strength to keep going forward. I'm really sorry, but I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. And hopefully, as Adam said, this will get the message out. Is there anything else, Adam, you just want to kind of finish off with?
No, truly, thank you so much. The only way we get this out and the only way more people listen and change and ask for change is through companies like yours. Thank you so much for helping. Truly, thank you.
That was, for any parent, that was arguably one of the worst nightmare that anyone could ever experience. Yet the heartbreaking element of Alex saying that little AJ had just started to read and he had always had the smile on his face. Juanita talked about the little dimples on his cheeks, and yet all they have now are the memories after their son tragically passed away just hours after arriving on what should have been his dream holiday. I'm Steve Brenner, senior reporter at the US Sun. Thank you for joining us. We reached out to the rental company, The Great Escape Lakeside, for comment, and they shared this statement. Our thoughts remain with the family. The incident in July 2025 occurred under previous ownership. Since taking over the property, we have implemented additional safety measures, including a mandatory verbal safety walkthrough at every check-in and an added physical barrier at the rear entrance to the pool area. Guest safety is our highest priority, and we continue to evaluate further improvements.